All right.
All right. Grace and peace to all. We are live this morning on the uh, Facebook page, Clergy for Cures, as well as our YouTube channel, Resource Center TV. And we are doing this live conversation and presentation this morning, brought to you by the Kenneth A. Free Senior Leadership Academy, as well as I Am Dope Skills Academy. The dope meaning developing ownership of personal empowerment, as well as the Jonathan McKee Education Initiative. As you know, we brought you last month the Minority Male Initiative, where we had several speakers and a panel. And now we're kind of moving forward with just more discussions and things that we want to bring you to the people, in particular or specific, our youth, that can help them, give them multiple resources and avenues to carve out their futures and open them to information that we may not have had access to growing up. But with that, today I want to say once again, welcome to everybody. I see Brother D. McDonald from I Am Dope is on. Welcome, brother, and shout out to all those from your organization that are joining and watching this morning. Also, I want to give a shout out to Brother William McKee with the Jonathan McKee Education Initiative. See, he's tuned in and sharing the posts and information. So welcome to all of just truly grateful for all that made this possible. So with that said, as you saw the flyer as we open, I just wanted to say today we are going to have a wonderful conversation on the importance of credit and investment. We can kind of get into those. And this conversation is going to kind of be led by our leaders, and we'll turn that over to them in a minute. But we are blessed to have who I call my co-pilot. He's been instrumental in just guiding and guiding this plane we call the Leadership Academy since the start of it in June of 2021. And he's been the go-to guy to help with that financial literacy that we've been trying to instill. And he was grateful just to take the time to share with us this morning on some of his experience and expertise in the field of credit and finance and investment. So with that, I'm gonna bring him on to kind of introduce himself to those who may not know him. And then after that, we'll go ahead and get started and have a couple of our young leaders who are on this morning to kick the conversation off. And we hope that it will guide you and you can gain information for this. And please share it out, share out the links and everything, because we do this for you all, and especially our next generation. So with that being said, without further ado, Mr. Stephen Onyeberechi is going to come forth now and introduce himself.
Sean, come on.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Appreciate that, Ben. As Ben stated, my name is Stephen Onyeberechi, and I've been working with Ben on this Leadership Academy for quite some time. And it's been a wonderful way to try to reach out to our, to our youth. And as both of us can attest, one thing that they do not really teach in schools is how to manage your money. Okay. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily an expert at credit and investing, but I can tell you I have been affected by credit and investment, or lack thereof, initially when I was younger. Okay. And if there's one thing that I think is lacking in the school systems, is teaching people how important credit is, how important money management is, and how much of a head start that can give you as you start your lives. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of background about myself. As you can tell by my last name, it's a foreign last name. It's Nigerian. Both my parents were born in Nigeria. I happened to be born in Eugene, Oregon. But having parents, that were born in Nigeria that came here, they really appreciated, being here in the U.S. But being foreigners, they really emphasized education, and they had to work hard because, my father got here in 1966 was when he first got here, and things were a lot different in the 60s, especially for a lot of people that looked like me. Okay. So my dad was, went very, very studious person, got his master's and PhD, but also while he was doing that, he was working 3 jobs. And, so while my dad was in school, getting his doctorate, he was also working 3 jobs trying to save money, for my mom, who then came over in 1970. So my dad has always been used to hard work, and he passed that on to us. I'm the oldest of 3 boys. My dad always emphasized education. He always emphasized hard work. But the one element that he did not have a chance to really teach us was credit. And I had to learn about the importance of credit when I went to college. I went to boarding school for high school, so I was away from home starting at 14. And then when I was 18, I went to college, predominantly white college at Yale University. And anybody that knows about the Ivy Leagues know that there are a lot of people with a lot of money that go to those schools. And I was actually not someone with that money, but being an 18-year-old kid, I got flooded with $20,000 credit card limit credit cards. And when you give a young kid that's never really had money access to $60,000 through credit cards, it could be a recipe for disaster if you don't know how to use it. Okay, so long story short, I went through 4 years trying to keep up with the Joneses in college. By the time I graduated from college, did fairly well in college. But by the time I got out of college, I had $67,000 of credit card debt. Okay. And I didn't have a job at the time. So I ended up moving down to North Carolina. My goal was to go to med school at Wake Forest, Bowman Gray, but I decided to take a different path. My first job out of college, and there's a reason why I'm going into this, because it hit me hard. So there is a method to this. There's a method to the madness with this story. So my first job actually was as a financial advisor here in Greensboro, North Carolina. Okay, with Triad Financial Services. So I had to get my Series 7 and 63 licenses. And then I started, and even though I didn't have anybody here in North Carolina, I started talking to a lot of the, young doctors at Moses Cone. I tried to concentrate on interns and young people that were trying to make the best for themselves. And I did very well. For my first 2 years, I really killed it with Triad Financial Services. Had a good salary as well. But one thing I stopped doing, which ended up costing me dearly, I stopped paying those credit cards. I said to myself, I was like, hey, I have a good salary. Why am I paying most of it on these credit cards? I was like, they shouldn't have given me credit. They shouldn't have extended me. Why did they give me credit, $20,000 limit at 18? So I started blaming them. And so I justified blaming them by not paying the cards. And what happens when you don't pay your debt, eventually it's going to charge off. Now, at that point, I didn't really know the importance of credit. Now, when I got my job as a financial advisor, they looked, one thing I didn't realize is that they looked at my credit. They interviewed some professors I had, and so they gave me the job. But because I was paying my credit cards, even though I was paying that minimum balance, my credit was pretty good. Okay. So now 2 years in, I'm doing a great job for this company, and they come to me and say, hey, we want to actually give you a promotion. We're so surprised at how well you've done because you didn't even know anybody here and you built a book of business. We want to put you on a management track. So I was excited. I was excited about it. And so, but then about 2 weeks into the process, my boss calls me into his office and is like, Steven, I don't even know how to tell you this, but we're going to have to let you go. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm one of the biggest producers for the firm. I have a great book of business. All these headhunters are, calling me, trying to recruit me for their firms, and you guys are letting me go. And you got to keep in mind, at this point, I was 23, 24, but then the gentleman told me, he's like, hey, we had to, as part of the promotion, we had to take a look at your credit and everything. And your credit is not very good. Okay. So here's a situation where I was making good money. I was doing a great job for this financial company. And then 2 years later, I'm being told I can't work there. So, of course, I was still young and cocky. I was young and cocky. I didn't really understand, but I was like, hey, I'm getting all these calls from these headhunters, so let me just call them and work for the competitors. And at that point, I was really motivated. And everybody was excited to see me at first. But then once again, when they do the background check, they do the credit. And keep in mind, we're talking about, I'm going to give my age up here, but we're talking about the late 90s here, okay? So all of a sudden, I go from having a $90,000 job to having no job. And even though all these competitors are interviewing me and I'm seemingly a good candidate, once they do the background check, once they see my credit, they just say, hey, your credit's terrible. How can you help people with their money when you're not a good steward of yours? Because they were judging me based on my credit, okay? And whether that was fair or not, I went from a situation where I felt like on top of the world to a point where, I was so embarrassed to even tell my friends, okay? Because I was always that one that, hey, he's doing everything right. And then as my savings were being depleted, and this is the part that hurts, as my savings were being depleted, I started trying to go for any job, okay? I was like, I need a job. I need, and keep in mind, I didn't tell my parents, because my parents were already upset I didn't go to med school. They were already upset. So in their eyes, I had to prove it to them. So now I go from there to not having a job. Then I couldn't get any job because they kept saying, hey, you're overqualified for the job. They're like, oh, you're just looking for a job. You're not going to stick here. So basically, long story short, before I ended up telling my parents, I ended up having to just start working at Labor Finders for 4 months. I think it was Labor Ready there. I think it's Labor Finders now. But nonetheless, I started working for 4 months at Labor Finders just to make ends meet. And I didn't communicate any of this to my family, to my friends, because I was embarrassed. And this is the importance about credit, okay? Because a lot of people with damaged credit, even today, it's about dignity, okay? Past mistakes, come in to rear their ugly head. So what I use I use my experiences that I was going on, that I had when I was younger, to really try to impart, to really stress to people how important credit is, okay? And, so let's understand what credit really is. And credit, we're looking at it from a financial standpoint, but let's just understand what credit is, okay? If my son does well in school, he gets good grades, I'm going to give him credit because he has shown me that he can handle school and he's doing a good job. So when he comes to me and says, "Hey, Dad, can I spend the night with my friend?" He's earned credit with me because he has shown that he's done well in school. So because he's done well and built credit with me, I'm going to let him do those things. Okay. However, if he was doing poorly in school, he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. So if he wants something, I'm not going to give him the credit because he hasn't earned credit with me. Okay. So I always tell people credit, the basic fundamental of credit is what have you done to give somebody confidence that they should do something for you? Okay. And, and in this case, I was a financial advisor for the first 2 years of my life. I thought I had earned a lot of credit based on the book of business I was bringing in, based on the money I was making for myself and for the firm. But overall, the way I managed my finances, and which to them was poorly because I had 3 charge-offs on my credit from the 3 credit cards I got in college. They felt that I was not worthy enough to be able to be a financial advisor anymore. Okay, so what I tell people is that in your interactions with people, whenever you're doing any type of work, you are trying to generate credit. Okay, so the better you do, the more responsibility you show, the more credit people are going to give you. Okay, now the credit sense that we're going to talk about is finances. Okay, so they don't teach that in school. I mean, I look at Cameron's curriculum every day. That's my son, and I don't see anything about paying bills on time or trying to use credit to invest in yourself. So, they don't teach that. So it's up to parents, it's up to you to show people that you care about how to manage credit. Okay. So currently today I am a realtor, a licensed North Carolina realtor, and I also happen to be a real estate investor. So I invest in real estate. So basically I use my money plus my credit to acquire properties. Okay. And I acquire those properties so that I can either rent them out or I can sell them for profit. And then I help, as being a licensed agent, I'm able to help others do the same. Okay. So, I know that there's a bunch of questions that people some people in our academy are going to ask us, but I just wanted to give a basic overview of myself, my background and why credit. I love credit. Okay. I don't know why, but I love credit because I've been hurt by it. I've been able to conquer it, and I've been able to help others do the same. Okay. And, I always tell people, hey, you have no control over what you've done in the past. It's what you do now and in the future. And, Damien, Cam, and the other people in our Leadership Academy, I'm like, hey, this is the time to build great credit now. And you got to develop the habits so that you can advance. And trust me, your life is going to be a whole lot better if you manage your credit now. Okay? So I guess I want to open it up, and then I'm going to talk about specific, later on during, this session, I am going to open up to show how credit has impacted real estate, how credit is impacting people with student loans, how credit. So we're gonna talk about how credit is really how credit can help and how it's hurting some people now. Okay, so but before I go into more in depth, I just want to make sure to see if there are any specific questions that any of you guys have when concerning credit that I can try to answer for you guys before I go into additional anecdotes.
And let me add to this, my people joining us on Facebook and YouTube, you can post questions in the chat as well if you haven't. And our folks on Zoom, some of our guests, you can post questions in the chat as well. And I'll be checking that as well if Mr. Stephen can't see it. But to transition, like Mr. Stephen did mention, we got a couple of our leaders that are going to kind of engage the conversation and kick it off. So if there are not any questions, we have Mr. Cameron Onyeberechi, as well as Mr. Damian Wynn, a couple of our leaders who have joined us to kind of lead the conversation. So what I'm going to do is pass it now to Cameron, who is looking so sharp and good, as well as Damian, and they're going to kick us off. So Cameron, make sure you unmute and go ahead and get us started. I think he froze up. There you go, Cam. Hold on, Cam. I think he's frozen. All right. Go ahead, Cameron.
Cameron is okay.
Looks like he's frozen.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So
I see his question. I see his question in the chat.
Okay, he's coming back on. Yeah, I think he froze up. All right. So his question was, is there a certain age or time when I can start to build credit?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question, and actually Cameron should know because we've already there are a couple of cards. You know, we have opened up one of those cards. I believe it's Green Light, where we through certain accomplishments of chores or tasks that we give them, we'll put money in the account. Okay, and it's his, you know, like his allowance, and we allow our kids to use those cards to buy things that they want. So it's, I always tell people it's never too, and my youngest kids, you know, they're 11 and 8. And the reason why we got them those cards with their specific names on them is so they could know how to manage their money. So whenever they like, Daddy, can I get this? Could I get that? You know, they want me to pay for it, but then I let them know, hey, you have money in your account. And it's amazing how much they decide that they don't need that thing anymore when they know it's coming from their money bank. So I always tell parents, hey, get these kids cards very young, because you know these kids have no problem letting you spend your money, but when they know that it's when they see that it's their money. And the one thing I can tell you with Cameron in particular, he loves seeing a lot of money in his account. Okay, and he hates to see that minus sign whenever he spends it. So it's through this account. And by them being able to visualize it, that they're able to see how important money is. And I always tell people, the more, when you get in the habit of seeing your money grow, whether that's in a checking account, a savings account, the more it grows, the more motivated you are to continue to grow it. You know, so that was a good question, Cam. So yeah, so it's never too young to start. You know, they do have these tools. They have tools for kids to be able to follow, like the Green Light card. I know there's some other cards as well. And hell, even the basic way that our parents used to do, they used to at least give us a piggy bank, and we used to put money in, you know, coins in it. And I always used to clown my brothers that I always had the more coins in my piggy bank. So it became a competition that way. So I guess you could say indirectly our parents were showing us the importance of savings through those type of methods. But that was a good question, Cameron. All right.
All right, Damien has a question.
Okay.
Okay, so how can poor credit have an impact on your future?
Okay, that's a great question. Okay, well, now I can show you about poor credit as it relates to what I do now. So obviously I'm in real estate. So I own property. I also help manage other people's property, and I'm dealing with a lot of tenants and home and actual owners. So and anybody that is trying to get housing now knows this. If you're trying to get good housing, the first thing they're going to do is look at your credit. Okay, there are some housing has gotten so scarce right now that there are some apartment complexes that will not even look at your application if your credit score is less than 680. Okay, all right. So having poor credit can prevent you from living in a quote ideal area. You know, I have, one of the hardest things for me to do right now is sometimes, when you represent these hedge funds or you represent these large buyers, what they do is they go in and buy portfolio of homes. Okay. Now, when they buy these portfolio of homes, a lot of these homes are already occupied by individuals. Okay. And then I have to go in and, I have to assess the property, see how it can be upgraded, because most of these large buyers are trying to buy houses, renovate them completely so they can increase the rent. Okay, so I'll tell you about a recent situation that I've had. Is that we had one client that one of the companies came in. They put about $50,000 into the home. First of all, they housed the tenant someplace else in one of their other properties, and then they totally upgraded the house. Put about $50,000 in the house. Very beautiful house. But then they came and told me, okay, hey, now that this house is done, the rent's going to go from $675 to $1,400 a month. Okay. So I have to go back to the tenant who's now being housed in a smaller house than one that they had. Say, hey, the rent's now going to be $1,400, and of course they were like, that's just too much for me. Okay, so I was like, okay, well, unfortunately we have to give you your notice, and I was helping them trying to find another place for them to stay. Okay. But because this tenant had, their credit score was under 520 because they had some charge-offs and some other things like that. Because this tenant had, their credit score was under 520 because. Okay, I don't know how that happened. Okay, but yeah, they went from a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house paying $675 a month, and they had to settle for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house paying $850 a month in an area that was less than where they were living before. Okay, and that was because of their credit score. And this is what I always tell people: a lot of people rent. If you're renting for a season, that's fantastic. You're renting for a reason. But if renting becomes a lifestyle, you put your livelihood and where you live, you're putting it on the shoulders of the landlord, who at any time can increase the rent, who at any time can give you a notice after the lease period ends. And that's a scary place to be. So I always tell people, hey, know where your credit is. And if it's poor, that's fine. Just get some help about how you can build it up and how you can, how you can change your actions so that, the thing about credit is you start doing the right actions now, your credit score can increase, pretty substantially in a quick period of time. But Damien, that was a great question, but that's an example of how poor credit can really hurt you. Okay. Another avenue, like let me tell you, I'm giving you guys anecdotes from real life situations. So we had another client who, another tenant who had stopped paying rent, and of course, it was a young guy. He was actually 25. He is 25. And I asked him, I was like, gosh, why haven't you been able to pay rent for the past 2 months? And he told me the story. He's like, I got in a car accident. My car got totaled. I didn't have gap insurance. And all of a sudden, I'm having to count on other people to take me to work. And when they're not reliable, I miss work. I ended up missing 4 or 5 days of work. And then after missing 5 days of work, they fired me because he didn't have reliable transportation to get to work. Okay. He tried to get another car, but because his credit wasn't good, because his credit wasn't good, he ended up purchasing a car. Ended up borrowing $2,000 from his from a family friend. Put the money down on a car. Within 2 weeks, that car was gone. It was a lemon. Okay, and now he's stuck. He can't get anything. Okay, now if he had better credit, maybe he would have been able to get a good, reliable, decent car. But instead, because of his credit, he was forced to take a car from one of these buy here, pay here places. Not saying all of those are bad, but he had to settle. So that's why I always tell you, and it seems like it's an endless cycle. When you're dealing with credit, people are forced to make certain decisions that end up hurting them even more. But that's why I always tell, especially young people, starting now, just build a credit. Cameron doesn't know this, but he's already on one of my credit cards as an authorized user because I'm trying to build his credit so that by the time he goes to college, my goal is for him to be in the 800s because he's had credit for so long. Okay? But that was a good question. Good question, Danny.
All right. I think Cam had another question. I think he's having some technical difficulties saying it keeps putting him out. He's trying to come on, but let me ask another question for him. And you kind of touched on this, so it's kind of building, but he was like, what are some core habits that you could develop to improve your credit? And I know you talked about putting money away, maybe getting a small card. Oh, there he is. But that was his next question. Like, are there other habits you can build or set early?
Well, yeah. As kids, it's very tough because, kids have a hard time differentiating between wants and needs, okay? Cameron wants a PS5. He wants a PS5 badly. So I'm like, does he really need one when he already has a PS4? Does he really want it? So I think for a lot of kids, you have to ask yourself your wants versus needs, okay? So I always, I'm amazed at how much candy costs, or, when you go to a sporting event, okay? And then I'm like, do you really need to get 2 meals at a football game and spend $25 right then and there for one person? Or do you say, hey, I'm just gonna stick with this here? It's just differentiating between needs versus wants. And this is why I always tell people, have a budget. So if Cameron, I always tell Cameron, hey, if your allowance is, if we're paying you $100 a month for doing certain chores, always decide that you're going to save 25% of it. So $25 automatically goes to savings. Then I say, hey, $25 you can actually spend, and then $50 you can try to save or use for it to build up an emergency fund. But what usually gets a lot of people is that they're not in the business of saving anything. And then so when something unexpected happens, which the one thing that will happen on a regular basis is something unexpected. So I always tell people, when you're doing your budget, obviously put some money aside for unexpected things, because the unexpected thing will become the expected thing. And then just know where your money's going. I mean, so if you know you're bringing home $2,000 a month, write down all your bills. And think about it. Don't think about it. Just write it down. So you say, hey, here are all the bills I have to pay every month. I have to pay my rent. I have to make my car payment. Okay, I need a certain amount of money for groceries. And if you write all that stuff down, you'll actually see why it's been tough for you to build credit or save, because you're like, okay, my expenses are way more than what I'm bringing home. That's why I'm always asking mom and dad for money. Okay, what can I change? How can I change? Because the only way you can really improve your cash flow and allow yourself money to save is either you reduce your expenses and decide, hey, what do I really need of these expenses, or you increase your income. Okay, and when we're young, income as you get older, your income's supposed to increase. Okay, so as young people, you got to try to keep your expenses as low as possible. Okay, so what I always tell people, one of the core habits is put everything on paper. Put everything on paper. Say, here's what I need. Here's what I spend every month based on my current situation. Just put it on paper, and then decide how much of the money you bring home do you want to save each month, and then try to stay disciplined. The problem with credit is the problem that we have with credit, too many of us compromise. And we compromise, We're like, well, I know I don't really need, I want to go to the club. I need to go to the club, but God, I don't get paid until Tuesday. How am I going to go to the club? Well, let me go ahead and you start spending money that you haven't even gotten yet. Then you get in a hole. Then something unexpected happens. Now, oh my God, I just spent it for going to, and then you get in a mess. So I would just say one of the core habits is put everything on paper, see where you are, and then spend some time saying, okay, what is truly a need and what is truly a want? Okay. And I think as young people, if you start doing that and then let that spur on, future. You start now, that's going to become part of your mindset as you get older. All right.
Thank you.
All right. So,
Damien,
any more questions? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, what are some resources that can help you with monitoring your credit?
Okay, great. Well, the one thing that I always tell all my clients to get, and this is free, is get an account with Credit Karma. Okay. Now, Credit Karma is not your real credit score. Okay, so I always tell people that's not your real credit score. However, the thing about Credit Karma, I will tell you, is as the score that they show increases, that means your credit's increasing. As it decreases, that means your credit's decreasing. So at least Credit Karma can be at least one way you can visualize how your credit's doing. Okay, and it's completely free. Now, Credit Karma will typically reveal your credit information from Equifax and TransUnion. And Experian has their own free service as well, Experian.com, which is completely free. Okay. So I would use, Experian.com, their free service, and then Credit Karma, which is also free. That can give you at least some way to start measuring how your credit's doing. Okay. Now, the one thing that I always caution not to necessarily do is a banker, they may go to a banker and they may be declined for a loan or a credit card. And then the banker will tell you, oh, you need to do this, 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 and this. Okay. Most of those people don't really know how to maximize your credit score. They're just doing it based on what they think is going to happen. I mean, they mean well, but they don't know exactly what's going to happen. But like I said, Credit Karma, Experian.com can let you know what your credit score, your scores are. Can let what can give you an idea of how well your credit is doing, and then it's certain habits that you can do. You can meet with someone, like myself, or maybe someone else that has experience helping people with their credit. They'll say, hey, what do I need to do now? Okay. But the one thing I always tell people, don't panic. I mean, if you go on Credit Karma and it says 410, you know what I'm saying? The world is not going to end, okay? But at least you now know where you stand, and then, start taking the steps. If you talk, like I say, like I tell everybody right now, you can't change the past. So if you've had some credit cards that have charged off, if you've had a card that's been repoed, if you've been evicted, okay, life doesn't end. But you can say, okay, these are the steps I'm going to take to get to the next level. Okay. And if your credit is poor, then there may be some sacrifices you're going to have to make. I always tell people, hey, if you have that stomach and you want to get rid of that stomach, you're going to have to do more work than that person that has a six-pack. Okay. You just are. There's some sacrifices that you're going to have to make, but you can get there. Okay, it's just habits. It's just actions, sticking with your actions and trying to develop habits. Okay?
Yeah. I see Cam, we can't hear him.
All right. Yeah, Cameron, we're hearing every other word, fortunately.
Okay. All right. So, let's shift gears while we try to work on Cam's technical difficulties. And let's talk about investment. Tie into investment and credit needed for investment.
Okay, exactly. Okay, that's great. So, yeah, well, now what people don't really understand is that credit shouldn't be a vehicle just to buy something to use, okay? Most people think of credit as, oh, I have great credit, so that means I can get that, BMW 750. That's great. You can get a car that you would drive, but the minute you buy that car, it's depreciated in value by like $10,000-$15,000 from the start. What I always tell people is that, hey, why don't you use your credit to build something? I personally use my credit now, and I help others use their credit to buy rental property. Okay. Yeah, so I have a bunch of tenants. Okay. So I have a bunch of tenants that rent out property that I own. Okay. But I have a mortgage on these properties. So by having a mortgage on these properties, am I making the monthly payment? No, the tenant is making the payment. You know what I'm saying? So that's an example of me using my credit to buy something that other people are paying off for me. You know what I mean? So that's an example of using credit in a constructive manner. Okay? Student loans. Let's talk about student loans. Whenever someone makes a decision to go to college or to go to trade school or something like that, you're using your credit to increase your knowledge, to increase your proficiency at a trade or a profession, or you're doing it to get your degree, your master's, your PhD, because that's going to help you get into a field where you make more money. So student loans, when used properly, is a way in which you're using your credit to invest in something. You're investing in yourself. Okay. Now, student loans, as I've dealt with, can also be that can become that anchor for you as well if you're not using it constructively. But that's a way to use credit. So there's another, actually one of my tenants right now, he's actually really good. He does great landscaping work, and he knows how to cut down trees. Okay, don't ask me how, but he's just very good at that. So he came to me about 2 months ago saying, "Hey, Stephen, I really can, because he did work for some of our trees, I really can make a business out of this, but I don't have the money to get the equipment. I keep having to rent the equipment." Okay. So after taking a look at his credit, I was able to help him get a small loan at his credit union, and he used that loan to buy equipment to help him do his tree business. And I can tell you right now, I've already referred him business myself, and I know some other property owners. He's already earned. He's already has jobs totaling $20,000 for the rest of the year cutting down trees, and all he needed was to get a loan for $1,500 to get the equipment to do these jobs. Okay, and this is a tenant for mine. He won't be a tenant for mine very longer because he's gonna get this money and he's gonna find his own place, but all it took was $1,500 for him to get jobs worth over $20,000. Okay, so that's the way credit. But because he was able to get a small loan of $1,500, he's now was able to earn $20,000. That's how credit is supposed to be when you use it constructively like that. Okay, but excellent question.
We're gonna let Damon ask one more, and then we'll try to open up because we got about a little over 10 minutes left. So, Damien, go ahead.
Okay.
Are you required to have any type of license to invest in property?
Okay, no. Good question again. No, I always tell people if you're going to try to invest, whatever you try to invest in, whether it's real estate, whether it's crypto, and I'm gonna roll my eyes with crypto, but anyway, sorry. Or a business, or you want to invest in a business, just learn the basics, okay? What usually kills people is that, they invest in things they don't know about. So they're investing in something and they're like, okay, maybe this is what I should invest in. And if you're asking maybe and you don't really know, you're going to get hammered, okay? The most money that I've ever lost in investing was when I tried to do day trading. I tried to do day trading in the early 2000s. I'm like, hey, everybody's making money day trading. Let me try to make some money day trading. And actually, the thing about it sucks because I started making money in day trading, and I'm like, oh, I'm an expert. And then that's when I got hammered. And I lost it was over $50,000 in like 3 hours. Okay. So following this one stock, Aurora Biosciences, I'll never forget that stock, ABSC. So there's no license needed to invest, but I always tell people before you invest in anything, just make sure you have a basic knowledge of it. You don't have to be an expert, but pretty much having a basic knowledge. Real estate's pretty easy. You say, hey, what is this property worth? I'm going to try to rent it. So what's the mortgage going to be? What can I rent it for? Is there going to be some spread there that I can put away and let it build? Because, with rental property, there are going to be some repairs. So you want to make sure you have enough cash flow where every month you're able to put money aside so that when you have to replace that HVAC, you have the money that's there. Okay. But yeah, so no licenses are required for that. You know, but make sure you have a basic knowledge foundation so that you know exactly what you're doing.
All right, we're gonna pause right there and take a question. I see a question from YouTube. Brother Will McKee asked, why is the credit conversation avoided, it seems like, in underserved communities and churches and some of our institutions? Why do we feel like it's avoided?
Well, you know, and that's a very good question. I mean, I think there's some people that have a negative connotation, and they have a negative view of credit. You know, I do know initially when I got burned by credit, you know, I remember saying to myself, "Oh, you know what? I'm not gonna get credit anymore. I'm just gonna pay cash everything, so I don't get in that position again." You know, and I think that because, you know, I think when someone has a certain time, you know, having poor credit, depending on the situation, can cause a certain amount of trauma. Because I know that when I had poor credit, you know, I looked down upon myself. I felt less than, you know. And so sometimes I think there's that, there's the feeling that, hey, let me avoid credit so I don't get in that situation again. You know, but no, but I think it should be one of those situations where, hey, okay, you know what you did, find out what you did wrong, and know, hey, I'm gonna be a better steward this time. You know, so, but I'm thinking that maybe it's not really talked about because, like I say, maybe because of your own personal experiences, you think that, oh, credit is bad, and I don't think that should be the message that we promote in those areas. I think we should tell people you can overcome and you can do better and you will do better.
Awesome. So look, we got about 5 minutes. Let me call my Cam. Are you with us? Because I want to get him on here, man. He looks so sharp, but I know we've been having technical difficulties. Say what's up. Yeah. All right. Cam, any comment you want to say to help us close out? He looks so sharp, y'all. I think he had a question for the young folks.
It's not. It's like I can't hear you guys.
You can't hear? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, no. Yeah.
All right, go ahead. You got one last question?
Question or comment?
What would you say? What would you say is a smart investment for a young person?
Okay, all right. Well, a smart investment for a young person. Oh gosh. Well, to be honest with you, I think a smart investment for a young person, you know, the younger you are, I think education. I think education is the smartest investment for a young person. And when I mean education, you know, obviously we want you to do well in school because you're judged by people judge you by how well you do in school. You know, however, education is an investment. So if there's something that you love, whether it's cars, whether it's gaming, whether it's whatever, that you say, hey, this is something that I can see myself doing when I'm older, invest in the education, learn more about it, you know, because I always tell you, the more of an expert you are in something, I don't care what it is, if you are an expert at something, whether it's gaming, playing games, you're an expert at playing these games, you can now make money, a lot of money, okay? If you're an expert on working on cars, you can be a great, there are a lot of people that need work with cars, especially now when, used cars are so expensive and new cars are so expensive. If you're great at fixing cars, learn more about it so you can make money doing it. So I would say the smartest investment for a young person is education in either school or a particular trade that you love and can kill it at. So I would say, so as the younger you are, find something you love and invest in the education to learn more about it.
That's awesome. And that kind of piggybacks on what we talk to the boys about all the time in our leadership. Like everything you put your time in and everything you focus is an investment. And that is powerful. And if everybody looks at that, maybe we would invest our time into more places where we don't, get stretched. And I know with me, I have trouble saying no. So my time gets invested in many things. But everything you put effort and time and energy into is an investment, but make sure you invest it so that you get the return on it, whether it be the education in school or learning about something you love or reading something, or see it as an investment and you'll get that proper return on your investment. That's powerful, Brother Stephen. Look, I'm gonna say this because I'm trying to respect everybody's time. I know everybody's got things to do on Saturday. We got about a minute and a half, but I do want to say we're gonna have to do a part 2 because I know we didn't get through everything. So we're gonna have to do a part 2. We'll probably have to do an evening chat with some coffee or tea, and like because we got so much to utilize this brother and pick his brain. So we're gonna definitely do a part 2 and get that out, hopefully. But I just want to send final shout outs to say thank you to all our leaders that helped with the questions. Mr. Stephen Onyeberechi, thank you for all you do with the Academy and sharing knowledge. Those who joined, I Am Dope Skills Academy out of Durham, North Carolina, shout out to you. The Jonathan McKee Education Initiative, the Tony McKee Scholarship Fund. Shout out to you for helping promote and all you do. Continue to look for more from these entities and the Minority Male Initiative and our groups that we want to put out stuff with STEM and STEAM, science, technology, and math, as well as science, technology, arts, and math, so that we can expose our youth to many resources so they have multiple options, because they are going to do greater things beyond what we're doing, but we want to make sure they have the path laid out for them. So, Brother Stephen, any final thoughts or something before we get out of here? And we're going to do a part 2, I promise.
Yeah, I mean, my main thing is, when it comes to credit, it's not the end of the world, okay? I mean, I think that the problem that we have is that when we feel like we're not happy with our circumstances or we made past mistakes in the past, that, oh, that's it. I have to live like this now forever, forever. And it's never that way. So, I always tell people, time into your kids, let them know, hey, it's okay, and if you're in a situation that you don't want to be in, just know that there are people that can help you. You just have to put it on paper and know that, hey, if you follow and start doing things from now, don't worry about the past. The past haunts too many people. Okay. And I know that for a fact, because I remember how I used to hammer myself. But, put things on paper and know that if you follow the right things now and in the future, it will get better, okay? And not overnight, but you will get where you need to be. And so if anybody has any questions about credit or, or finances or past mistakes or whatever, I will always fill time to try to give, some wisdom, because more than likely I've been there. Okay.
No doubt, no doubt. And to the fellas, Damien, hey, appreciate you, brother. Say peace out. I want everybody to see your shirt as well. Sit up straight. Say peace, man. Say peace. Peace out.
So,
All right, Cam,
Yeah,
say
do
peace out.
All right, guys. Take care, everyone.
All right, we
Yeah.
appreciate everything and look for the next event. All right, be safe. Enjoy your weekend. Until the next time. This is my youngest. They ready for soccer. Y'all have a blessed one.
all right. See ya.